What's happening, folks? Welcome back to Celtic Fans TV. We've got something a bit different for you tonight. It is the two Celtic YouTube giants collaborating. I'm joined by Ryan118 for a special two-part video series looking at the Ange Postecoglou revolution, we'll call it. Ryan, thanks for joining me, mate. What's happening? How you doing?
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I think it's been a while since the last time that we've done a wee collab together, so I'm quite excited. And as you say, the two giants, I love that. It's giving me such like tag team vibes. So I'm looking forward to this. A big discussion, of course, as we get ready for what's going to be a massive, massive season.
As mate, just giving the people what they want in it.
Exactly. You've got to keep them happy, especially after the year we've had.
Exactly. So part one here, we're going to talk about recruitment. Obviously, the most important part of the rebuild. We've been talking about this rebuild, Ryan, for about 9 months, and it's finally here. But goes with it saying that the recruitment is obviously going to be the biggest part of it, because if Ange doesn't get the players that he needs, if he doesn't get backed properly, he's going to find it hard to be successful.
Yeah, it's finally here, and as it actually does come upon us, and it started, I think, for a lot of people, the magnitude is now more like real. Back a few months ago, I think there was certain fans, I think like people like yourselves, as we do this all the time, we speak about it all the time, we knew that there was going to be quite a large job in our hands, but I think a lot of people were thinking to themselves, we'll be all right, we'll get there. And now we're counting on the club making a lot of signings. So it's a really important couple of weeks for Ange, because we're only, what is it, a couple of weeks away now from the game against Midfield. We really need first team players in. We're not too sure who that's going to be. There's been, players linked with us every week that then the next week aren't. So it's really fascinating. It's exciting, but at the same time, it does leave you quite anxious and wondering whether or not we'll get everything done in a suitable amount of time. So get the finger out is the main message for me.
That's the main message every Celtic transfer window, isn't it?
Oh, exactly.
We've definitely, they call it silly season, but and it's mental in it, because every day there's a new player linked. Obviously, I want to start by talking about all the positions that we need. I'll run through a sort of short list. If you were to draw up, if you were Ange Postecoglou and you were going to Don Mackay and saying, right, here's a list of what I need, how many players is it, and in what positions are they?
Well, it's hard to say that he's not just got in asking for a new team in it, because there's so many players, and it's not even just the fact that we need like a first team player in certain areas. It's the fact that there's so much depth needed as well. There's a lot of people who'll go even saying they need a goalkeeper. We know we need right backs, we need defenders of every sort. Like this, it's well and truly, it's huge. How many we need. Because the one area for me that you look at just as the prime example right now is probably the right back area, in which we only have the one option of Anthony Ralston. And that means, we need probably 2 or 3 right backs alone, and that's just one position on the park. So it's crazy. There's so many positions we do need, and it stretches all the way from back to front.
Aye, so you're saying 2 right backs. I agree. I think we need 2. If I was surprised Ralston got a new 1-year deal, but are we going to use him? Is he honestly going to be like getting game time this season? You would think. I mean, unless he finds a new turns over a new leaf with Postecoglou, then maybe. But I don't fancy him to be Celtic's right back. So you think we need 2 right backs?
Absolutely, because Ralston, we'll look at how his career's kind of went since he, let's say, burst onto the scene for Celtic when he was playing against PSG, and there was people gave him this, that,
burst
and the
next on with a 5-0 defeat.
Exactly. You look at his career since then, he's been put out on emergency loans, he's had absolutely stinking performances. Quite frankly, I think, and no disrespect to the guy, he's showed that he's not probably the quality that Celtic need in their team, which worries me why we've given a new contract. I don't know if it's a sign from Celtic going, oh, well, we're going to be relying on him and debt for as our second choice. I hope that isn't the case, but absolutely, I think you're looking at 2 right backs at the very least needed for Celtic. I would maybe like to see one come in that's a bit younger, and then I would like to see somebody come in with a bit of experience too. I've been saying this for a while on my own channel. I feel like in the full back areas, in recent times, we've not really had a physical sort of player, and maybe that comes in with an older player. You look at Taylor, you look at Frimpong. I know we had El Ahmed, but he was in and out with injuries. Taylor and Frimpong were kind of have been our two main options over the past year or so. And I just feel like there was a lack of physicality with him sometimes. So maybe a bit of an older player who comes in with that, and then somebody who can maybe go on and take the reins once they're sort of done. I don't know who you go and say starts. We need to look at our options first, but definitely two you're needing to come in, I think.
I think it's hard to get the balance right with fullbacks these days, isn't it? Because their game is so focused on going forward, so they need to be quick, they need to be technically good, but getting that balance and still being strong defensively. And as you say, with Taylor and Frimpong, they were a bit short in terms of height. Frimpong obviously brilliant going forward, but again, it's about getting that balance between can they defend properly, but then also give you a different option going forward as well. So we'll say two right backs, a centre half. We've obviously got Liam Shaw and Uzazi Urhoghide in. Do you think we need one centre half or two? And obviously that depends on Christopher Ayer's future.
Yeah, I think it's that. Funnily enough, bringing up Ayer, I think there's a big question mark as to what's happening there. Both him and Edouard still at the club. I feel like everything sort of went quiet in the way of going out with him. Ayer, I know there's been talks about like Norwich and such, but everything seems to be a little bit on the back burner, which is a bit weird. I would like to get more clarification on that. I would still like to see a couple of centre halves come in. I'm a big fan so far of what I've heard and seen from Urhoghide. I think he could be somebody who blossoms into a great player at Celtic. Liam Shaw, someone who's played centre half, can play in the midfield too. I'm sure he'll be another player who has a great future. But I think there's still two players that we need in there. And hopefully Julian comes back soon too, of course. And then you've got a player there. I really want us to get Vuskovic over the line. I feel like that's a player that, with all the talk I've seen, has just got me more and more excited. And then, of course, we had Fabrizio Romano earlier just break the news that we were linked with that Swedish guy. So if we could sign literally those two centre halves, if we could get this I forgot his name off the top of my head, the boy that Fabrizio Romano's linked this way. I don't know if you can remember, but it's just
Carol Starfelt.
That's it. It just popped in my head there. I was trying my best not to look down. If we could get maybe him and then Vuskovic in, I think that would be perfect business from Celtic, because then you've got Julian coming back hopefully some point soon. You've got Stephen Welsh maybe there to progress a little bit more, and then you've got Urhoghide and Shaw who can play in centre half as well. So I think those two signings would be a great start for Celtic if they could get them done soon.
We'll talk about the targets then as we go through the positions. You've talked about Vuskovic there for Hadrick Split. The news the other day was that he was preparing for the transfer to Celtic, and it looked like as if it was as close as it's been so far. Do you think, obviously he's 19 years old, if you look at Shaw, who's only 20, Urhoghide's just turned 21, they're all of a very similar age profile. And we'll come to Starfelt in a minute, who's maybe a little bit different. But do you like that? Do you think that's a good sort of target age range for Celtic? Because if you look at Red Bull Salzburg, they tend to just stick to signing players under the age of 23. They try and never sign anybody over the age of 23 because they're constantly thinking about their development and their sell-on value, and that's how their model works. So again, it's where do you sit on the balance there between bringing in young players who can develop and have a high sell-on value, but then you're talking about centre halves, so you don't want too much inexperience. Yeah,
it's always a weird kind of dilemma to be in, whether or not you want to have sign players with experience and young players. I think a lot of people would like another experienced player in there, and I wouldn't of course knock that back if we can get a player who's good enough. Ultimately, it's about being good enough for me. I think it doesn't really matter the age. If they're a player who I think could go into the starting 11 and they look like they could play in the starting 11, I'll take it. But I think Celtic's model nowadays is about capitalising on getting these players in who can be developed and sold on for a fee. I think the majority of our best signings over the past few years have been players like that. And maybe even you can stretch to Tierney and say he came through the academy, but players that we've managed to sell on for a big fee have been really useful to Celtic and got us some of the best success. So I would like to see these younger guys come in, but as long as we've done our due diligence with the signings, there's been so many young players that we've signed as well that have went on to do absolutely nothing, and maybe players like Kundai Benyu who've came in and just not had a chance, and then we've got rid of them, and maybe even players like Kamara as well, who's quite young. But there's always seems to be, I feel like especially these centre halves that we're getting just now and we're getting linked with, there's something about them. I don't know, but there's just like a weird. I look at them and I go, they look like they could be a serious player. And I don't know if it's maybe just me wanting to see the turn of a leaf at Celtic and just hope for the best. But I look at them and I'm like, I think we can do it. And at the same time, I'm like, we signed an experienced centre half last year. We got Duffy in, and it was arguably the worst signing we've ever made. So for me, it's just all about doing the due diligence, getting that part right. And if they're good enough to go in the team, we have the faith to put them in the team, then we see where we go. But I like that model. I must admit, it's the kind of modernisation of football that we keep getting told about, isn't it?
Aye, it is. And in terms of both of those, Vuskovic and Starfelt, there's a lot of Christopher Ajer comparisons in terms of good with the ball, maybe not the strongest in the air, certainly for Starfelt, for what I was reading on Boys Analytics before I came on.
Yep.
Not the strongest in the air, but good passer of the ball. And that, again, you want that balance between the two centre halves. But do you think that we've got that right recently? Because a lot of people think that Christopher Ajer is a great player, and I think he's a great player. But if he does have one weakness, it's maybe that he's not a natural enough defender. So if we're going to sign two, would you like a more natural defender and a ball player?
Yeah, that's. I seen somebody earlier saying Twitter about Starfelt that he was a bit of a bomb scare, and I think the quote retweet was something like, "Oh, it wouldn't be Celtic if we didn't have a bomb scare at the back." You know, it seems like we've constantly got someone there that has you on the edge of your seat and your heart and your mouth. So it seems pretty consistent of us. I get that though. I think with that, there is that concern. It's right to have. With the way Ange Postecoglou likes to set up his teams, I think we've all seen that he wants these defenders to push very, very high. So these are players that are going to suit him, and that does leave a bit of a concern. So we should maybe focus on getting someone who's a bit more of a natural defender. I think there's going to be a trust process in there, I think, as well, that maybe we can get these guys to be a bit more better at defending and all these intricacies that make them all-out defenders rather than ball-playing defenders. If they're at such a young age, maybe there is room for development, but it's difficult. Once again, just need to see what the names come up in the market, and hopefully we do find somebody that's like that.
Those two are both relatively big money though. 5 million, I think, is Vuskovic, and we're talking about 4 million for Starfelt. So I don't know if we'll get them both, but if we do, that's a lot of investment in that area. Have you seen Starfelt, by the way? He's like a young Ivan Drago.
I was watching some stuff just before we came on. I was taking my pals were asking the group chat, and they were like, "Oh, what do you think about him?" I was like, "Interesting."
Left back, mate. You talked about Aaron Hickey in your video. I seen a wee bit before I came on. Talk that we're going to get priced out of a move there. Left back is another big position for us where we need to get reinforcements in. We've only really got Greg Taylor left in that position in terms of first team players. What do you think about Aaron Hickey before we get to the sort of price tag stuff?
I thought it was a kind of at first I was, do you know what I was like? At first I was like, okay, right, that's fine. And then the more I looked at it, and the more I looked at him when he was 17 and he was playing here, he was really good for his age at 17. I remember watching him one-on-one defending. He wasn't as rash as some other players. I thought he was well executed in different parts of his game. So I was thinking to myself, well, 17 he was playing well over here. Now he's 19. He's been training at high level in the Serie A. I was like, this is probably a must go for Celtic. This is somebody who can develop a lot. And I know he said we'll go into the price tag. So, I thought at first this could be the perfect answer that coming in and being our new left back, but of course things have kind of changed since then.
Aye, I mean £3.5 million was the first sort of fee that we're talking about, and see with Hickey, I just feel like if you're paying £3.5 million, like we done it with Bolingoli, that was a failure. We effectively spent that same money on Greg Taylor as well. He was came in for Kilmarnock. Limited in that you don't feel like he can be Celtic's long-term first choice left back, and I just feel that with Hickey being 19, can you spend £3-4 million on him and then be confident that he's the long-term first choice left back? Because I agree, like I thought at Hearts he looked really good at times, but he did look like he had a lot of development to do.
Yep.
So I just think if we went and spent £3 or £4 million on him, I'm not really sure that between Taylor and Hickey we've got an absolute nailed on long-term left back.
Yes,
maybe one day with Hickey, but you don't know.
That's the thing. You're relying. And that was my original kind of, so on the podcast we were talking, and Ryan who's on it, he's very big on Hickey, and at first I was a bit more reserved than him, and I was thinking, yeah, I think he will come good, and I think he would be a great signing. But you are putting such a reliance on, aren't you, about him having to develop quite a bit, because right now I don't think there would be a significant difference between him and Taylor. I think there would be a slight difference. I think that Hickey probably arguably might be a better player just now, but I think you're relying on a significant change for that return of money, which is obviously something for Celtic is very important.
And what are they talking about now in terms of fee? 6 million?
6.7 million, I think, is the exact number that they've slapped on him, which is just absolutely ludicrous.
Bonkers, man. Aye. Bonkers. The other thing with Hickey is, how long has it been since he left Hearts? I mean, see if we really wanted him, and we thought, I know we had him, I think we had him as a kid, didn't we? But see if we really wanted him, we should have just took him from Hearts. And I know he might have chose to go to Bologna, but we were getting linked to him even back then. So
I think it was Craig Levine who said on the radio that we were in for him about 3 or 4 times, but there was never a serious enough offer or something like that.
Sounds familiar.
Aye, it does. It sounds very Celtic, doesn't it? Aye, it's like, I get what you're saying there. I think you're getting a spot on. It's only been a year, hasn't it?
Aye. So why not just pay that money like just over a year ago, and then he could have done the development with us. But anyway, Kenneth Powell is the other left back. We've been linked to it. It's so hard, mate, innit? Because you go through all these names, and as I say, there's a different name every day, and you're trying to find out what you can about them, see their stats, try and find YouTube videos. 24, Powell's 24. Plays for Swole in Holland. He actually made his debut for PSV against Celtic in a friendly 2014.
That's right, I was reading that. Aye.
I mean, have you seen much of him? He does look quite good going forward. I think he's quick. He's got a goal in him as well. And again, same as the right hand side, so we're getting that balance. But he's 24, and that's something that I maybe think with Taylor being there and everyone being unsure about whether Taylor can be that long-term left back. I think we maybe want someone who is a couple of years older than Aaron Hickey, who we can be confident has played a lot of first-team football at a good level and can come in and make that position their own. Because I think with Hickey, as I say, we're not guaranteed that.
Yeah, the thing is with Powell here is, I think the good thing is you're looking at somebody I think is going to cost significantly less. I think they just rejected a bid for about £650,000 for him. So I think you're looking at maybe a player that you could maybe get for maybe around £1 million or something, which is far more suitable for Celtic in regards to paying 6.7 million for Aaron Hickey. But that was one of the main things I thought of as well. I think the age gives it a bit of an advantage there for Powell in terms of you are bringing in somebody across that back line that maybe has a couple more years experience, play at a decent level too. As you've said, quick player. I think he likes to have a lot of the ball too. I was looking at some of his analytics today, and it seems like he likes to carry the ball. He likes to get up and down that left hand side. He moves it well. And he's somebody that, of course, that I think all of us will say, but we don't watch a lot of Eredivisie footballs, but from all the reading you can do, it looks like somebody that could be a bit different in comparison to the other younger left backs, and maybe someone who's got a bit more of a polished game just now, which could be handy because we're getting all these young guys in across the back line, with better looks of things. So maybe a guy a couple of years older could be a better option there.
I think we were also linked with another left back today. Is it for Bodo Glimt? We're going to come to midfield and talk about another player for the same team. Midfield, mate, do you think we need a central midfielder? I
would very much like another central midfielder. I think the three you're looking at, I think the three that will get shouted about the most this season for start, but if people want to pick to start, would be Soro, McGregor, and Turnbull, of course, like kind of in that wee triangle. Which is a good midfield three. I'm a fan of that. Then you start thinking about what happens if somebody goes out the team, and I don't know if there's a great quality in the depth there just now, an established quality. There's a lot of good young guys that could go on to have good careers. You've got Henderson and Robertson, Luca Connell, players like that who are all there to be an option. But I think we certainly do need somebody else. I would really like a player who, of course, we've lost Scott Brown. I don't think we're going to get a central midfielder that's like Scott Brown, but I'd just like somebody who can come in and kind of pull the strings and give us something there. I don't know, just another central midfielder would be nice, because I really do feel that we lack great quality in there. You look at, I hate to bring them up, but you look at Rangers at the other side, and they've just brought in Lundstrom, of course. They've still got Kamara, they've got Jack, they've got Arfield. They're talking about that boy for Herenveen as well, who looks a really good player. They've got a lot of great depth there, whereas I feel ours might not be as strong at the minute, and we really need somebody, I think.
Aye, we were linked with Patrick Berg from Bodo Glimt. That's went quiet though, hasn't it? I've not heard anything about that for a few weeks.
It went really quiet, sadly, because I really liked the look at him. I must admit, he was somebody that caught my eyes as soon as I started seeing the links and the videos and stuff of him. So I wish it didn't go quiet.
Aye, he looked like a technical player, good passer of the ball. You think that's what we're looking for in midfield if we do go and get one?
Yeah, I think so. I know a lot of people might want something like a Scott Brown replacement, but people forget when Scott Brown was younger as well. He was very good at a lot of the technical side of the game. Just as he got older, he kind of changed and adapted to a different sort of player. So I would like somebody like that. I really would. I feel like it's something that Callum McGregor could do, I think, but I think we use him in a different way. And I would just like somebody who sits there and does stuff like that, just pings the ball, passes it, keeps everybody in order. I think like that we need that technical sort of player there that's just good with the ball at our feet. I don't know right now who the main option would be for that, but it's just something I think it would make us a lot more tidy on the middle and just that transition between the front and back.
I agree. I think we definitely need another player in there, but whether it's someone with the sort of attributes you would associate with Scott Brown later in his career, in terms of breaking up the play and playing for deep, I don't know. I think I would like a more technical, creative player in there. The thing that I'm keen to see this season, and we can maybe talk about this in part 2, which you'll need to stay tuned for. David Turnbull, who was fantastic last season, I want to see what sort of demands without the ball are going to be placed on him in Postecoglou's team, because I think David Turnbull is absolutely brilliant, and I'm not saying that he can't do that, but I really want him to go into that position, and if it's demanded that he's pressing all the time, to go and do that, because I think that's the only thing in his game that he maybe didn't have last season, and I think that's the thing that could really take him to the next level. Yeah,
I would agree with that. I think you've got it pretty nail on the head there. The good thing is so about Turnbull is he was so good for us last season, some would say, and I think the majority of folk might say he was our player of the season. He was a real shining sort of light. The good thing about him is he's still that young and he has got a long way to go. So these are definitely attributes that I feel with the right manager, maybe that being Ange Postecoglou, can definitely take him to that sort of level.
Next up, mate, wingers. How badly do we need wingers? Like, it's crazy, isn't it?
Last season was just... It hurt so much just watching how much we struggled down both the left and right hand side, and then obviously we had Lennon throwing us back and forth between a diamond and then not a diamond. It was really, really annoying, and I think one thing that I hate sounding like I say like that, if you like, but the one thing that I kept coming back to last season was Celtic are historically known for being the team with the best wingers in the country. We've always had great wingers, and last season we had none.
No wingers.
Forrest out, El Yunusi was in and out the team and all the rest of it, and Johnson was out, and we just had none. And it was so clear that we needed them. The team are so used to having good wingers in there, and we just lacked so much. Not even just quality, but a wee bit of flair. We just lacked it.
Aye. Here's a worry, but have we been linked to any wingers yet?
Absolutely, I can't think of one off the top of my head. Genuinely.
We're talking about all these players. We're talking about all these players we've been linked with, like about 1 million centre halves, right backs, left backs, not one winger. Who do we have that can play from the left wing? Mikey Johnson.
Just Johnson, I think, innit?
That's it, innit?
Oh, dearie me.
Who was injured for like 80% of last season. So right, we've not really got any names to talk about in terms of wingers, but that is, for me, that's one of the biggest areas. As you say, how last season went, we really need to bring in quality and depth in that area.
We really do, and that's one thing. I've not even, until we sat down and you just said that there, I've been so focused on like just looking at the names we have been linked with that I haven't really been looking at the names we've not been linked with and the positions we've not been linked with. So now that you bring it up, it is really concerning. Of course, we've got Forrest back in the team, which is great, but what we're going to do when he's injured again or something. You know, that's nobody there. Marion Schwer, I don't see him getting a chance at the club again. So where do you turn? Where do you go? They need to move in that area.
I think we do really quickly, because I don't know how much you've watched of any Postecoglou's teams, but the little that I've seen, wide players are so integral to everything they do. Like I've seen so many goals that came for cutbacks from the wingers or the fullbacks, but we've not got any wingers. We've got two, James Forrest and Mikey Johnson. They were injured for 80% of last season.
I was going to say that. I was going to say, like, is Postecoglou's team very not so much relying, but they're very influential in the team anyway. So it makes you wonder, like, they're just going to scrap the idea of playing with wingers and then maybe push like Bolingoli into a left wing back and sign a right wing back and just go with that approach again. It kind of concerns me.
Aye, that is a big concern. I hope we get linked with some soon, because we'll come to talk about the game against Michelin shortly, but I'd like to have at least one in for that game. Finally, mate, strikers. This again is similar to centre half, is all dependent on the future odds in Edouard. We were linked with Kevin Nisbet last week for £4 million. I'm sure you've discussed this on your own channel and stuff. But how do you feel about the Nisbet links?
I really like Nisbet. I really, really want him at Celtic, I must admit. I think he's somebody who can. It brings a bit of everything from what you want in a striker. He's got physicality, he's got speed, he's got good finishing ability. He's a nuisance, and he's. I feel like he'd be great for Celtic. On that note, this is assuming that Edouard does leave the club. Right, I don't know what's happening there, because of course the move with Leicester has apparently fallen through and everything else. But assuming that Edouard leaves the club, I look at the three strikers that we could potentially have if Nisbet signs: Nisbet, Ajeti, and Griffiths. I don't know about you, but I still feel like even if we do go and spend about £4 million in Nisbet, I think we're still needing that sort of. I feel like we need a genuine Edouard replacement or something. We need that sort of electric striker that maybe a lot of people won't believe Nisbet is yet. I don't know if you'd agree with me, but I still feel like we need to maybe get someone else in.
No, I absolutely agree with that. I think it's spot on, because again, I like Nisbet. I think he's got a lot of good qualities, and he's a goal scorer. You can never really have enough goal scorers, natural goal scorers. But I just don't think he's got that X factor, for wanting a better phrase, like something like Edouard. Is he going to be the number one long-term striker for Celtic to replace Edouard? No. He's a good player.
I think he's a player that maybe after a year or two at Celtic could become a number one choice striker, but you're certainly not going to get that straight away, I don't think. I think you would realise that there has been a perhaps significant drop in quality there.
Aye, definitely. So £4 million, again, it all depends on how much we're going to spend in that area of the pitch. If we're not going to spend much more than £4 million, then I wouldn't spend it all on Nisbet. But if we're happy to go and get another player to replace Edouard at 5-6 million of the right quality, again, because as you say, between Ajeti and Griffiths, if Edouard does go, I mean, you just don't know. You don't know if Griffiths is even going to be there next week. And Ajeti, I like Ajeti again. I think he's a goal scorer, but he's got a lot of ground to make up for where he was last season in terms of fitness. Before we can judge him.
I still want to. I'll actually like die on that ship. That ship I'll stay on is Ajeti will come through and be a player. But
mate, I'm there. I'm on that ship with you.
Absolutely. I've got the feeling, but it's about, once again, like we said, with bringing in like the younger guys and that if it was Hickey, you're putting such a reliance on that. So how much can you actually put there realistically between wanting it to happen and the actual expectation? You've got to be prepared for maybe him showing that he's not going to be the goal scorer we think he can be. But let's hope he is. I'm going to stick he is.
Right. The last thing I've put on here before we get to the Michelin tie is a wild card signing, that we had to come up with one each that we haven't discussed in this video. I'll let you go first. I've struggled. I was racking my brains last night.
It's so difficult.
It was hard.
It's so difficult because realistically, like, the players that Celtic do sign are either ones that have already been brought up, like Nisbet, Hickey, like the Scottish talents and stuff that we already know are maybe good enough for Celtic, or the players we've just never heard of, like Vuskovic and these guys. So it is really, really difficult. So I've gone with a guy that I've mentioned a couple of times, and he's somebody who, of course, as it's a wild card signing, will not sign for Celtic. We don't expect him to sign for Celtic, but I've gone with a guy from Eintracht Frankfurt over in Germany. I've gone with Danny Da Costa, who's just returned from a loan with FC Mainz, who had a great 6 months after being loaned to Mainz. He's a right back / right midfielder. He can play basically all down that right-hand side. And I think that Frankfurt were apparently willing to sell him to Mainz for about £3.5 million. And I don't believe it has been exercised as of yet. He's back at Frankfurt now, in fact. So I don't, that maybe something's happened along the way and I don't know, but he can play it right back. He can play it right mid. He was played in different formations for Mainz in the last 6 months of the season. And I feel like he could could solve a lot of problems on that right-hand side for Celtic. Somebody playing right back and right mid. It's kind of killing the two birds with the one stone. So I've went with him.
Good, mate. I like it. That's outside the box. A lot more outside the box than mine, because I done some amount of searching last night, and as you say, like, it's hard to find players that you've never heard of. And I looked at so many, and mine's is a lot more inside the box, and we've actually already loosely been linked to him. But the one that I watched a lot of content on last night was the Georgian winger. I'm sure you've heard him because he's a big Football Manager wonder kid, Kvaratskhelia.
Yes.
And then watching him, thinking, "Aye, this guy's brilliant." And then reading, I think he was linked with Juventus and Arsenal, and so I was like, "Nah, probably not him."
Probably about your price range or something.
Aye, probably, but he's still at Rubin Kazan. And I think that's where Starfelt's from, innit?
That's not about to say. Is that not where Starfelt's apparently coming for whatever? I thought that there,
Aye. So maybe if they've been watching Starfelt, they'll try and put a bid in for him.
Who knows? Well, if they've been playing the game, they might know as well.
aye, maybe. I'm going to go Ali McCann because I just like him. I think he's really good. I think he's young enough. He's a good age, I think, for a midfielder. He's maybe got all the qualities of a midfielder we were talking about earlier. Again, is he going to come into if we sign him this summer, is he going to come into the team and nail down a place straight away? Probably not, but I think there's a lot of development in him, and I think he can do a bit of everything. I think he can break up the play. He gets up and down the pitch. He's box to box at times. He's got a goal in him. He's good on the ball. I like his passing, and I think you talked about the Rangers midfield earlier, and Glenn Kamara, who's been excellent for them, was 50 grand. So there is players in Scotland that can make the step up to play for Celtic, and we just need to make sure that we don't miss the right ones.
Make sure we don't go for Yusuf Malumbus of this world instead.
Correct. Aye, correct. Right, 2 questions left before we round up, mate, and then we can maybe get a wee preview to the audience of part 2. How many signings do you think we're going to get before Midtjylland?
Before Midtjylland, oh Christ, that's an ambitious one.
2 weeks, innit? We've only got 2 weeks.
and knowing Celtic, that things will just come to a car crash with everybody we're linked with. I'm gonna aim low. I'm just gonna aim low. I'm gonna say 2. I think that you're hoping that we make. I think we're all hoping we make maybe 4 or 5, maybe even 6 signings before then. But I'm going to just aim low and say 2, just so that I'm not disappointed by the time the game comes.
Aye, I'm going to say I was thinking 2 as well. It honestly wouldn't surprise me if it was only 1.
I don't know. Not to be honest, it wouldn't even surprise me if it was none. I honestly would. It's like 50% of your head's like, no, they can't let that happen. Surely they recognise that can't happen. But then the other half is like, it's Celtic. So who knows?
Aye. They surely couldn't have let that happen last season, and the season before that, and the season before that. And the qualifiers are going to be so difficult, even more difficult than they have been in recent seasons. How many signings do you think we'll get in total this summer? We'll count Shaw and Urugiri as the 2 completed first team signings so far.
We're going to count them, right? I'm going to try it well. You're hoping that Vuskovic comes in. I'm hoping still, even though it's been a bit weird the last week or so. Hopefully this Starfield one, when Romano says something, I want to believe it. So I'm hoping that he maybe comes in as well. He's saying 4. if you're talking all together, this is now aiming a wee bit higher, maybe. I'm going to say 8 because we need players. So I'm going to say 8. It's ambitious. It's asking Celtic to do something, but it's the number I'm going to throw out.
So that's another 6 on top of Shaw and Urhoghide?
Yes, would be.
Aye, I think. I mean, it depends, doesn't it? It depends. Do we lose Ayer? Do we lose Edward?
That's the big thing. Aye, that I think I'll put in the star beside mine that it would be 8 if we sell those 2. That if they go, if they don't go, I'd probably put it down. But I'm assuming that they are going to leave the club, so I'd say 8 if they leave. Aye.
I'll go 1 right back because I think we might shoehorn Urhoghide to be the backup right back.
Yeah.
And then you've got Ralston there. I'll go a left back. I feel like we might only get one of these centre halves.
You probably only get the one. I'd see the ones. If it depends on the fees, doesn't it? Because if it's asking Celtic to do a lot to go and sign one centre back for 5 million and maybe another for 4 million, I feel like that is probably asking quite a bit of Celtic, isn't it?
I think so. Aye, and again, we've seen the movie 1,000 times that we'll still get beat on there, and we've got guys we can shoehorn into being backups, and we'll find a way. So that's 3 so far. I'll go a midfielder, a left winger, and a striker. But the striker will come after Edward leaves. So that's 6. So I'm at 8 as well, counting Shaw and Urhoghide. But we'll see how it unfolds. Part 2, mate. Part 2, do you want to give the people a wee idea of what's coming up in part 2?
Well, part 2, we've not got an exact date for it yet, but we're assuming it'll be in maybe a week or two's time when the squad has got on a little bit further. We've managed to see a bit more of Celtic in the friendlies. We expect a style of play. And hopefully, as we've been talking about all video, we'll be hoping that we've seen some signings. So I think we're going to discuss probably the point we're at and maybe look at an ideal sort of 11 heading into the start of the season, Paul. I think that's the kind of the route we're going to go down.
That's it, mate. I hope it's not too speculative, and I hope we've got some meat in the bones in terms of signings, because we could just be coming up with like a dream 11 if there's no signings.
It was like, I remember I made one when we were still getting linked with, and I don't want to mention his name anymore, but we were still getting linked with Eddie Howe, and I made an ideal 11, and now looking at that 11, I'm going, Christ almighty, why did I mean, granted, it would have made sense a lot of the signings I was talking about under Howe, but now I'm like, there was just no point whatsoever.
I think we've all been stung on multiple occasions with the transfer rumours, mate. That's it. Stay tuned for part 2. That will be over on Ryan's channel in a couple of weeks' time. Like this video, comment with your own thoughts below. You can jump onto Ryan's channel. Make sure you subscribe to keep up with all his content. It's Ryan118, as if you don't know already. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.